Oh, yeah. Yes, yo, you don't stop. Big John, come rocking the short shock. I'm a boy, the GOAT. Chris Allen in the chair with me, MB Fantasy Life Show. Sunday morning, Q&A edition, man. You need coffee? Who needs coffee when you're rolling with us? Make sure you check out the website, fantasylife.com. We are rocking and rolling. Mr. Allen, talk to us. Good morning, my friend. What's up, kid?
Hey, yo, it's been what, we're now a month into the season, and we have like so many more questions that I need answered, but I'm just ready to sit down and watch the games, John. That's where I'm at right now. We've got so many storylines, all this drama. We got injuries going left, right, and center, but we're here to help the people. So I'm ready to hop into the chat and see what questions folks have.
We're going to end up getting swamped with cues. But
Oh,
first, not to
100%.
say detour, but I want to lay down a little macro because you're really good at this stuff. I obviously follow all your work. And it has to do with the suppression of offense. I don't know if you're following my stuff. Wink, wink, shameless self-promotion. Make sure you're signed up to the betting newsletter. Yo, I'm bringing that smoke, even if you're not into betting. There, I've got those snazzy charts and stuff like that.
I'm trying. I'm trying to get into it.
But I covered the suppression of offense, and I think that's pretty obvious. Man, if I were a better host, I'd have this queued up. But I'll tell you, it's quite literally historical, right? Digging through the True Media database, we're at, in fact, Chris, I'll be honest, I started with a decade low, like that was my parameter.
Yeah.
And I realized everything was beyond that. So I had to go back to, they go to 2000, and a lot of these stats, EPA per play, yards per attempt, it's insane how low we are. So a lot of the questions, again, because I think this will pave the path, is what are you doing with these back-end fantasy starters? The questions I get more than anything is basically nondescript wide receiver 4 or like split back RB2. Where have you found that you've been leaning? Because I think that's like a macro decision a lot of us are facing.
Right. And I think at least for me, the split back like RB2 has kind of been the way that I've been leaning, because in a lot of cases, we've been thinking like these contingent or like handcuff or backup running backs were going to be the way we were going to win a lot of these like best ball tournaments throughout the summer, continue having some volume like for most of our rosters throughout the season anyway. And we've seen like that shift away from that bell cow type running back where really it's only like the CMCs, the Saquon Barkley's, the Brees Halls, the Bijan Robinsons. Those are the guys like getting 67% of the team's rushing carries. These are the guys that are still getting like around that 10% target share and still being used inside the 5. The wide receiver 4 is like your Jordan Whittingtons, your Tyler Johnsons. I mean, the Jalen McMillans. I mean, all of them, like those come down to a much more nuanced discussion about, well, what's their collegiate profile look like? How were they able to produce while they were in college? Are they your typical slot receiver, or are they the guys that can play inside and out? How highly were they drafted? What does the team think of them? Like, I just like rattled off like 4, 5, 6 things that we have to consider before they even get out onto the field. Whereas for the running backs, 1, it's easier for them to get out on the field. 2, we know how they can be used once they're out there just based off some of the collegiate data that's available here at fantasylife.com. So that's where I've typically leaned. But then it's just like once you get into the specific situation, so like the 2 Rams guys that I talked about, we just know that team is going to be running more plays per game, passing more often than not, that at least once they get to the field, they're the guys that we would probably want to target anyway. But just like, I don't know, insert like the Andre Yoshivas's of the world, or I'm sure we're going to get plenty of Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo type questions for today as well. Those guys require, again, just a much more nuanced discussion about like who they're going up against, which in this case is going to be my Bengals defense, which is something of a headache for me. But like those are the guys where it's like you do have to think a bit more versus saying, oh, one guy went down, so now I should elevate this other guy. It's not as straightforward as you might think.
Yeah, I tend to think of myself as a bit of a trend forecaster, right? That's what we're doing here. And yet, so far this year, I don't know if it's conservatism or just routine kind of muscle memory, something that I've heard you speak about when it comes to fantasy is I'm used to penciling in the wide receiver in PPR formats and just kind of going from there. But lately, had you been starting Braylon Allen or even Alexander Madison, you probably did better than, I know I rolled out DeMarcus Robinson and I kind of face planted. No one has breaking news, Chris. No one is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp, right? And not that we thought he was going to go 15 for 140 and 3 or anything, but I did think volume would get funneled either to Johnson or to Robinson. We haven't seen it happen. So, all right, let's dive into the questions. First come, first serve. We got Conklin, Strange, or Andrews this week. I think first things first is what we thought was going to be a very deep tight end season has been anything but, not to victory lap because I have my L's. I was off of Andrews. The threat of likely. I was afraid with the Monken progression we didn't see last year. Maybe we would have. But usually my thing for Chris, I'm kind of a habitual cheapskate, is as long as I don't pay for it, you really got to hit on it, right? You know what I mean? Like, I allow people to pay premiums where I have doubt. So for me, it's probably, it's probably Conklin in the world's slowest Jets offense right now. Do you have a strong lean?
No strong lean. If you wanted to go like in the way of like a Tyler Conklin for this week, I could understand that, because I have concerns about like Garrett Wilson as a play for this week anyway. In the wide receiver cornerback matchups column that I write for Fantasy Life this week, I did note that like while Wilson is seeing like over 20% of the team's targets like through 3 weeks, he has that like wide receiver one role. The problem is that with him like likely going up against Pat Surtain like this weekend, 1, and 2, like his slot target rate has slowly dipped over the past 3 weeks as well. Like Nathaniel Hackett, like he's not really like putting his wide receiver one like in advantageous situations or places where he can win. So it's been like more Alan Lazard. It's been more Tyler Conklin. It's been more like these ancillary guys and not really Aaron Rodgers hooking up with the guy that he insists that he needs to get the ball to more. So if we're not going to like, we don't have any sort of inclination that that's going to change for this week. Hopefully it does, like for the folks that are rostering Garrett Wilson. I just think that it's an easier route for Tyler Conklin to produce versus, I mean, I don't want any part of the Jacksonville Jaguars passing game at this point, especially with them going up against the Texans. If you have Andrews, I understand you wanting to start him this week and let's see if things like click for him. We know that he had the tightrope surgery like over the offseason, the car crash like shortly before the season started. And he said that he's been trying to ramp up and his time is coming. So if you wanted to throw him out one more week this week, I understand. But at least for right now, with the way the usage is going, I can understand like why you're going to take Tyler Conklin in this.
Okay, 2 really quick points. We'll put a bow on this. Number 1, I don't think any of us now will look past that tightrope surgery. First, it was Tony Pollard, who now looks very explosive, who to me, I thought that was a very easy buy low, but regardless, point being, these late season injuries, we don't hear about them in the offseason, and we kind of assume like full health, and a lot of times that might be a mistake. The other thing that I think you really nailed, great job, Chris, you're really good at this. That was not only like, interesting, but really astute. You should do this for a living. Is Tyler Conklin is doing his best Cade Otton impression? At least, right? Yeah. He's doing the world's best Cade Otton impression. I've got 92% of snaps, 91% route participation. However, right, but it's the target per route is all that stuff is really low. It's only at 10%. But to my point again, with the slow pace of the Jets, I don't think the volume is there. They move really slow. Rodgers is super deliberate. This hurts everyone. And if I could take a lowercase L, because I was really high on Garrett Wilson, who I think is phenomenal, and the alpha target at the price, maybe we should have smelled out good Jets defense plus slow-paced offense, right? Just very kind of macro stuff, and said maybe he should be the 18th overall and not the 11th. And again, I'm not trashing him, just being fair. All right, let's skip over Lex Plant, and we'll come back for Matt's question. Jaden Reed with Love playing today, or Deontay Johnson with PPR. Man, my gut says, what's the next option? What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. Who else do you have?
Yeah,
because like with the Packers going up against like the Vikings defense, who has been suffocating offenses like throughout the season. I mean, Brian Flores, like is there a defensive coach of the year? Like they need to have that award up there, because Brian Flores would win that like without a doubt. That's my only concern. Like the Vikings so far have been one of the more like blitz heavy teams in the league. And if you do have any concerns about Jordan Love's mobility, putting him behind like the Packers offensive line, who has played well, I do think that is something of a concern, like for like Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, and the rest of the guys. And also, if I had to bet on any of the 2 like wide receivers, it would be Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs. But I would look at Deontay Johnson from a PPR standpoint. I think that's my initial lean, is just from like the target share, and also them going up against Cincinnati's defense, like who we've seen like them give up like plenty of production to wide receiver ones. Now, Terry McLaurin just this past week, he got off more from a deep ball perspective, like with Jaden Daniels, like hucking the ball downfield. But we know that Johnson wins by route running, and he's played against like the Cincinnati Bengals defense a few times since he comes from the AFC North. So if he is like the wide receiver one for this squad, especially with Adam Thielen like already on IR, I think that's my initial lean in PPR settings, because I see like the target share being there for him more, the pass volume being there for him more with Andy Dalton under center. Whereas with Jaden Reed, I could see it being more of a spread out type of game. Let's make sure that we're getting like all the wide receivers and the ball for the Packers so that they're moving the ball down the field, versus with Deontay Johnson, it's really just him. And then afterwards, a massive gap. And then Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, like all the guys after that.
Yeah, Jaden Reed, infinitely talented. Listen, he can win, but there is a lot more of competition for those very same targets. And I think the matchup is tougher. I think you really nailed that. One thing I want to highlight with Deontay Johnson is, yes, we all kind of have the Andy Dalton love story going on. Mm-hmm. However, even before Dalton, all the usage stuff was crazy, right? So this is on the season. This is not just the kind of week 3 cherry pick here. Deontay Johnson, 29% target per route, 28% of the team targets, 35% of the team air yards, 33% explosive reception rate, double-digit targets going beyond that 20-yard mark. Those are all the things that we really want. And he's the undisputed target in the end zone. Mm-hmm. So, and if we want to go further, even without the real threat in the backfield, right? Because I think we'd all go Jacobs over Hubbard. So, yeah, for me, that one's, I hate being so clear on a player that I like as much as Jaden Reed, but that's where I am. All right, next up, would you start Jahan Dotson without A.J. Brown and Smith tonight? Would you start Dotson over Keenan Allen? Wow, my answer is probably no. I was trying to dig into the mystery that will be the Eagles wide receiver core, Chris, and I was really coming up with a lot of air in these big ham hock fists of mine. So, and listen, Dotson's out there running routes, and I have to take, if I took a lowercase L before, this one's a L for love, giant one. Is this the same player? I could swear I saw Dotson winning in small spaces in Washington and just housing guys for touchdowns in really small spaces with bad quarterback play. And I was thinking, wow, this is a player that really needs to be unleashed and could be elevated with good play. And now it's just, he's out there. It's not even wind sprints. He's out there. He's not doing anything with it.
Yeah,
so
he's getting his cardio in.
Dotson, I think. I usually reserve cardio for 9 routes, but he's out there running. He's running over his.
He's all over the place.
He's cross training, Chris. We just came up with a new one. He's not cardio is when you're doing the 9 routes. He's doing CrossFit out there, hanging from one arm and doing flips and stuff. Can you sell yourself on Dotson? The player I was more interested in preseason was Johnny Wilson, actually.
Yes, and the hope is with Wilson that he continues to ramp up his route participation, which has slowly come up over the weeks because he was dealing with his own hamstring injuries coming into the season. I'm okay. I'll caveat this: if you were one of the poor souls that went up against Malik Neighbors on Thursday night, and you need some punch to your offense, then I would consider playing Jahan Dotson in that matchup. That's where, because if you want that explosivity, if you want the big plays downfield, we know that's what Jahan Dotson can do, then I would consider him. But if you're just starting off, it's 0-0, nobody had anybody going on Thursday night, it's just you're just playing the matchup straight up, I would go Keenan Allen. Over 30% of the team's targets in the 1 week that he was healthy. He did talk when he was talking to reporters about the injury. He did say that this was something that he's been dealing with since the preseason game, or when they went up against the Bengals, I think at some point during their joint practices and all that. So he feels healthy. He's out there. I would say that this is more of a route for him to reascend to being the team's wide receiver one, or at least challenging DJ Moore for targets. So this is more of a hit to Rome Odunze, more of a hit to Cole Kmet. And so if you are playing this matchup straight up and it is 0-0, I lean towards Keenan Allen. But if you did go up against Malik Neighbors or somebody else that happened to go off on Thursday night, then I would consider starting Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I hate to pull the S or get off the pot move here, but if you don't get it done against the Rams, these Bears are officially in trouble. I'm not flushing Caleb Williams. The career is fine. He's probably going to be great, not just good. But first-year struggles are real. We've seen Hall of Famers faceplant. All right, so it's almost time to sound the alarms. And for fantasy, it's absolutely. I probably would have pulled the plug already. I probably would have started collecting a Derek Carr or a Sam Darnold, a Daniel Jones, just in case. I think that was pertinent. But again, this Rams defense has been horrific. I think you have to lean into that. More than 30 points a game, more than 425 yards a game, almost 7 yards per play, and second to only the Commanders in EPA per play. Yes, it's going to be hard to be worse than anything defensively, Chris, when the Commanders are still in the league until we relegate them. Once we relegate them, that bottom spot will be open.
Yeah,
right,
we
next
need
up,
like some sort of relegation in the
yeah,
league.
we need to flex one player. Why don't you just kick us off here? It's Kelsey, Braylon Allen, or Zach Charbonnet. I didn't get official word, but I think KW3 is back. I think Walker.
Yes, that's what I heard. He should be good to go for Monday night. No, I'm still with I'm with Travis Kelce just because the contingent role for Braylon Allen, he looks good. If you got him on your roster, you got the hit that you wanted to see, like out of drafting a contingent back, like outside of because everybody was drafting, like we were talking earlier, the Tyler Algiers, the Bucky Irvings. I mean, all those RB2s that could ascend into an RB1 role, and Braylon Allen is a hit. I mean, Ray Davis, I think, also kind of fits in that mold as well. But like Zach Charbonnet, without knowing what his role is going to be with Ken Walker, I think the only guy that we at least have some hope for that can fall into the end zone this week would be Travis Kelce. I mean, they've been talking about it. If there is going to be a defense that you want to attempt to get around, I mean, it would be like this Chargers defense now with multiple players like being out on their defense. Derwin James out, Joey Bosa out. So I think this is the time where if you wanted to flex, if you have to flex like Travis Kelce, I would do it for this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there. He's actually running more routes this year than last year, where it's funny. I was correct in not drafting him, but I kind of was incorrect in why. I actually thought they were going to give him kind of the Michael Jordan treatment. Again, I was misplaced on, where I thought the passing offense might go for the team. A lot of us thought the Hollywood Brown, and the Worthy additions were going to, were like a leading indicator for this stretch offense going on.
Man, I was hoping to
generate the tweet. I quote tweeted JJ Zacharyson, and he had mentioned something about the really low ADOT from Holmes. I ended up charting it. It's insane. There has not been like a single pass deep middle. I know sometimes these parameters can be a little wonky, but I use the picture. You literally don't have to defend. There's a huge swath of the field. That doesn't mean it won't change, right? It doesn't mean Worthy won't begin to get there. But, man, at this point, it's got to go somewhere. So, again, Kelsey's out there. Yeah. It's got to happen. I think I would go there also for my perceived reliability, but he's only averaging 4 targets a game. Yeah. It's a bit worrisome, right? Not what we signed up for. I think that's at least objectively fair. Next up, a lot of these. Hubbard or Akers? This is a good one. If Mixon is out, I don't think Mixon is going to play. I know when I did my projections, I marked him as a 0.
I thought Mixon was good. I mean, that'd be worth double checking to see whether or not he's going to be active or not for this particular game. I thought at least from the earlier indications that Mixon was going to be available.
Okay, he did get a limited practice in. You're correct about that. He did.
Yeah. So if we're assuming Mixon is out, then I would play Akers over Chuba Hubbard. If Mixon is in, I would take Hubbard over Akers. I mean, Cincinnati is going to be without two of their defensive tackles in this game. We already know the defensive woes for Cincinnati from a rushing perspective. So if Hubbard's going to be the guy again this week, he's been taking majority of the team's carries for so long. Also, he got a receiving touchdown just this past week against the Raiders, so we know that he is a solid passing game option for Andy Dalton as well. I mean, I would lean Hubbard over Akers, but just depends on, let's double check Mixon's status and then pivot from there.
Yeah, Hubbard's another guy. We kind of build. I mentioned muscle memory before. You mentioned best ball, which is something I have to remember going forward. You got to shake the best ball rod because it's a different game, and players fit the different molds. And I think there are players that I hand wave for redraft, and maybe I should have rethought. I was worried about Jonathan Brooks maybe coming in, and then if the Panthers again were just awful,
right? Where
redraft, you got to win now, right? You got to win now. This is a starting running back that was going very, very late, and there was a chance they were going to be good. And yeah, for me, it's pretty clear that it's Hubbard. I mean, the Cincinnati run stats get worse every time I look. Negative rush EPA per snap, and a 52% defensive success rate against the rush is only behind, which is funny, it's only behind the Cowboys, who must have been really good. They did a pretty good job. They just did a pretty good job against the Giants. I know because I had Singletary props. So I had.
Yeah. See, if Friedman was here, he'd probably get on you saying because he's a Cowboys fan, so he'd probably say something to you about that.
Yeah, well, he'd be the first to probably dogpile. If I listen to a ton of content.
Maybe. Yeah.
I am surprised to see them so low because those stats include the Giant game where they just kind of smushed Singletary. Well, I also show you the Cowboys have been kind of spiraling on their own. So yeah, I would go. Here we are, in the year of our Lord 2024, recommending Carolina Panthers. in fantasy football, everybody. Go
Right.
figure. You know what I mean? You never know. Welcome to the simulation, everybody, with John and Chris. Next
Exactly.
up, I got Sam Darnold. Oh, quarterback questions. These are interesting. Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson, or Caleb Williams. Oh, my gosh. I can't believe I'm being asked this in week 4. Go ahead. It's all you. You have a stand. I'm going to just make, visceral noises.
Or visceral noises. So Sam Darnold, Caleb Williams, or like Anthony Richardson, like that's what it was?
Yeah, Caleb, A-Rich, or Sam Darnold.
Okay.
This feels like this is the porridge scenario, Chris, right?
Yeah. So I'll lean like Sam Darnold in this particular matchup because he is getting like Jordan Addison back for this week. So we have like not just Justin Jefferson, who is like the wide receiver one on the season so far, but Jordan Addison. We know how well like Sam Darnold has been able to play, like not just in structure, but also with pressure in his face, like which was one of the things that I thought coming into the season. It was like, okay, he'd have one of those like explosive games like we saw in weeks 1 and 2. But once teams started figuring it out, once teams started to be able to like get through the offensive line and really like, put him like into that mode where he has to scramble and think about things, he would break down. But that really hasn't been the case. Like his EPA per play, like once he gets under pressure, like has been like at least above average like so far, and like especially relative to what he was at when he was still playing for the Jets. So like I lean towards like Sam Darnold in this matchup, but if you wanted to take the plunge on Caleb Williams, high pass rate over expectation, at least like in week 3, like I can understand that. But Richardson, man, I just really need to see like his completion percentage over expected really start to pick up on the intermediate parts of the field, like him connecting with Michael Pittman more, Josh Downs getting involved more, and not just relying on the deep shots to Alec Pierce, like Ashton Dulin, like any of those guys. So I think it's like Sam Darnold, then Caleb Williams, and then Anthony Richardson for me.
Yeah, you helped me kind of nod through the tears here a little bit for my poor Richardson. That's my guy. Like I love this young man. He is unbelievable. He is unbelievable. And you know what? We find ourselves as fantasy drafters sometimes, or I do at least. We get caught in that little disconnect between talent and ceiling and the lack of experience and what it takes to get there. Again, I wholly believe in this man. I really do. But we're talking about today, and we're talking about a really, really tough matchup. I think he's the clear no. That Steeler defense was like, I'm watching these games back, Chris, and I was just looking up, waiting to see leather helmets when you watch the Steelers play right now. I'll tell you what, though, and as a Fields guy, you know what? People are mad because he's not running all over the place. Hey, man, you can't have it every way. Right. We wanted a more responsible kind of grounded play, and I feel like that's what we've got with Fields. I think his mind meld with Tomlin's probably really good, and this is like Steeler football. It's unders, people. You want to avoid this like the plague these games. I think Pickens is basically playable in Steelers games. Other than that, I'm even worried about like the runners and stuff. I really am, because Fields splits with Najee and stuff. So I think I'm avoiding that Colts Steeler game today outright. You got me with Darnold. You made so many really good points. I think the Packers D is really tough also. I'll tell you what, here's my take. Looking at the availability of these quarterbacks tells me it's probably a shallow league. And I think I might play for the upside with Williams and hope that they land in some crazy shootout maybe with the Rams. I'm not really sure.
We'll have to see.
I think you sold me on Darnold, to be honest.
The only other thing I would say, like for the Packers defense, Jair Alexander might not play today. So that might be another thing. I know like him and Justin Jefferson have gone back and forth. What was it, that playoff game where Justin Jefferson didn't get the first down to allow the Vikings to progress throughout the rest of the playoffs? And you see Alexander gritting like afterwards. So it's like if Alexander also doesn't go, that'd be another point in Sam Darnold's favor.
That's a good call that I just checked. Downgraded to DNP Friday. I don't like that.
Yeah. So worth checking.
I don't think there is a like a direct 100% correlation, but midweek downgrades are bad, right?
Yeah.
If anything, it's telling you partial snap count or high chance for re-aggravation. Yeah, so maybe that's a really good call. Maybe I would go. When are we going to stop doubting KOC, man? This guy's just
right. That's the offensive coach of the year.
All right, next up, get your pillows, everybody. It's Tight End Talk 2024. Cole Kmet or Zach Ertz. I can't believe, man. Such a rake. I did the Zoomer thing, and I'm beyond 40. I should have known better, Chris. I should have known better. countless best ball lobbies where I had Jaden Daniels. He's one of my most rostered QBs. I was all over that. That was a hit.
Yeah.
I also like premium tight ends. Trey McBride, one of my guys. Hey, that sounded pretty good. But oh my God, it's hard to even say. The Daniels pairing, I did the Sinnott thing, right? I did
yeah.
I did the hey, look,
I did it too. I did it too.
But the answer was old and dusty, my friend. The answer was old and dusty. The Ertz stuff is wild right now. I think I would go with that just for the volume. We've seen the downside to the Bears offense, and he's splitting with Everett also. That's Komet. So I don't know. Can you have a strong take on this?
No real strong take, but I think the only concern is that Cole Kmet's like target share spiked while Keenan Allen is out. And if we're assuming that Keenan Allen is going to be at least healthy enough to go this week in what is going to be like, we think going to be an advantageous matchup like for the Bears passing game against the Rams, I guess I would lean towards Zach Ertz. While it doesn't sound great, I think that's the data point that I'm really like weighing the most in this is that Kmet saw like the most usage like while Keenan Allen was out, and with him coming back, and like Caleb Williams has all three of his wide receivers to choose from. We already saw Roman Dunze break out just this past week. My assumption is it's going to be less for Cole Kmet, and like we're still getting the same amount of work like for Zach Ertz, which hasn't been bad. I mean, like 13, 14, a couple percent of the team's targets the week beforehand, over 20% last week against the Bengals. I mean, if it's just steady Eddie, like 3, 4, 5 targets, I mean, I can kind of live with that.
He's running 28 routes a game, dude.
Yeah.
He's out there. Like
he's out there.
He is out there. And you know what? I hate to use these, kind of like overused adages or whatever, but he is kind of the safety blanket. He's caught 12 of 13 targets. And this is my favorite. This is the most Zach Ertziest stat of all the Zach Ertz stats. Less than 2 yak per reception. Like,
yikes.
As a
catch and fall down.
Human,
That's what the Jason Witten will just catch and fall down. Yeah.
As a 6 foot tall human, that's almost hard to do. Like he's almost collapsing upon himself, like into his shoes, like Yosemite Sam. So that's the new that's the new Zach Ertz thing. I would know, but all kidding aside, I would go to Ertz because he's the underneath target. I think you nailing the Keenan Allen thing is great. And also, I wanted to get one of my own favorite phrases in, Chris, because when I often listen to you all the time, I think about it, and it's one of why you're one of my favorite analysts. So the spreadsheet almost too much sometimes. I know, I understand.
Yeah.
What I think you're very great at, and again, this is my thing, frog DNA. Now, I don't know if you're picking up on the analogy right off the bat, Jurassic Park. Right, so in Jurassic Park, we had a lot of the DNA, but not enough. So they fill it in with frog DNA, which is bright inferences, right? Using things that we know within our understanding and range of expertise to bridge. And that's what I think you're so good at with a lot of these kind of layered subjective takes, or just your understanding of the butterfly effect, right? I want to make sure that I got that because I love the frog DNA reference. I get it all the time. People are like, "Oh, that kind of connects a dot," and I was like, "Oh, that actually makes sense," because that's is connecting dots where you can't just look at the Excel sheet. It just doesn't work that way, and it's something that I have found I get myself in trouble with all the time, being a little bit too nerdy. All right, next up, loving my FantasyLife Plus subscription. What better time to remind people, sign up for the FL Plus premium stuff? Yes, listen, if it's free, I was raised kind of poor. If it's free, it's for me. That's always been our thing. So you can get in with all the great work from geniuses like Chris and ... myself, Dwayne McFarland, Ian Harditz, Matty Friedman, the Oracle, kind of bringing that smoke every single day. And then there is the FL Plus side. Check out the website, sign up to the newsletters, and join the community. It's been a lot of fun so far. I think I kind of add, I'm like the Tasmanian devil, like at the very end, like we need something in the blender, right? We need a little bit of spice. Yeah. Hopefully that's where I come in. So next up, we got Jordan Mason. Ooh, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones need one. I'm sorry, this goes back to the initial jump off of running back play. There's got to be someone else you could bench. Almost, I feel like there's got to be someone else you could bench. Can you even rank these players?
I mean, we can. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure we can. I mean, our team over here at FantasyLife has done like exactly that. Then I'll pull up the rankings here in just a second for folks to take a look, because if you don't want to, you can blame us for our recommendation, but if you don't believe us, go ahead and take a look at the fantasy rankings that we have right now, so it's Mason, Gibbs, and Aaron Jones. If I had to lean like towards one of them, I think I would probably just looking at the matchups. So we've got the 49ers going up against like the New England Patriots. We got Aaron Jones going up against his own team, and then Gibbs going up against like the Seahawks on Monday night. Out of all of those three, probably Jordan Mason probably projects the strongest out of that group. I mean, we haven't seen any sort of touch share for like Isaac Arendo or like any of the rest of the guys. So if I had to guess, he probably grades out as the best of those three. If I wanted to hop down narrative street and then say okay, hey, if you really need some punch or whatever, and it is a PPR league, I wouldn't mind taking a look at Aaron Jones in that particular matchup. And I'll just switch this so that it's just looking at the running backs going up against his old team. We know that they want to try and show out. He is being involved in the passing game. I would consider him, but it's probably Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. So we got Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason up here in tier 2, our rankers consensus rankings in tier 2. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, right at the top of tier 3. So I agree with that ranking, and that's probably how I'd put them just looking at their matchups and also their usage so far. I mean, Jordan Mason, gosh, over 70% of the teams rushing share so far. My only concern for him, long term, not just for this matchup this weekend, but just long term, is while he's out there running routes, not earning a ton of targets. 5-6% of the team's targets, whereas that's about half of where CMC was at. So he's maybe 80% CMC, 70% CMC in terms of getting all the rushing share, but then almost very little of the passing game work. But at least for this week alone, the way that he's being used on the field, in one of the more efficient offenses in the league, I think I lean towards Jordan Mason out of that group.
Yeah, you actually made so many good points. I think you dropped a little one. You made mention that name Garendo, people. You should add him before the weekend starts, right? If he's available, because I think one of the places we don't look, and again, I do the waiver wire article, and when you're kind of looking for volume only, that could get you in trouble because running backs get injured. The more times you touch a ball, the more likely you are to get injured. Just math and life, right? Math plus life equals that. So you almost want the running backs with the least amount of time. It sounds weird, right? You almost want the guys with the least amount of touches, or at the maybe better put is you want the guys behind the most massive workload. So sure. I was doing a little bit of my own league digging, and I don't know, they're all different, and it can be very hard to recommend players because you're always going to get that one guy. Actually, those guys are rostered in my league. I don't know what kind of league you guys play in. And it's dude, you got to understand, most people are normal, and are in 10 or 12 team leagues, not 30 team, 18, player formats and stuff. But adding into a weekend, I have found, has served me really well in the past to try and get in front of. Listen, we never want to put the horns in an injury on anybody, but it's just strong play. It's smart. It's smart play, and in particular, running backs. I like to go into the weekend with as many running backs as I can.
Yes,
Speaking of which, I think I'm with you. If I could just put a slipo, I'm with you. I had Mason projected the highest. I think he has the highest floor. I thought it was interesting you have Jones. I always think of the higher ceiling, maybe Gibbs, but I think with Montgomery sucking up the TD equity, I was with you. That's where you kind of sold me on that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. And also the revenge game narrative. I mean, him going back and playing against, I know he wants to try and shut. That's more of a vibes thing. There's no spreadsheets associated with that. Just more of a vibes thing about him being upset about being released, let go from the Packers. I know they wanted to try and keep it. I think there was even a story out that Matt LaFleur was also upset that Aaron Jones had to leave Green Bay as well. So it's just I can see him wanting to go back and put on a show. And if there's a case to be made, it's going to be this weekend.
I did a live stream draft with our own Dwayne McFarland at RT Sports, and
that's cool.
Man, I was twisting his arm to draft Aaron Jones over Raheem Mostert. We ended up freaking fracking for 2 rounds after that. I'm glad that we did. He's such a sharp guy. I think I got the nod on that one, but again, sometimes we get the right answer for the wrong reason. Although part of it, I was worried about the Mostert durability again. Age is, running back is a young man's game. Anyway, one more running back question for you, because we had Jahmyr Gibbs on the brain, who we didn't really detail. I have him or James Conner. I'm also seeing Debo, but if Debo does play, which I wasn't expecting, I wouldn't be expecting too much. Oh, he actually did log a limited practice also. Yep. So I still feel that way about the limitations with Debo. We've seen him be used as a decoy before. I think Gibbs is too premium of a piece. But, man, in this case, I might like Conner for the touchdown possibilities.
Yeah, I agree because we haven't seen any sort of like split between like him and like Trey Benson. I know that Amari DeMarcado has mixed in sometimes on like 2 minute like obvious passing situations, but it's still been James Conner. And like I know like some folks like they want to like try and bake in like the injury risk for him, like in terms of his average his ADP, like when you're drafting him. But it's like when he is out there playing and he is healthy, like he is like the workhorse back. Like he is like CMC in a nutshell, like for at least like while he's healthy. It's just that we don't get him for the full length of the season like we typically do Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, any of those guys. But if he is still being used like as a receiver, we have seen that throughout the season so far. And once they get into short yardage situations and going up against the Commanders defense, we just watched like Zach Moss like in the end zone this past week. I mean, the defensive matchup and also offensive environment sets up that I would probably put it Connor, Gibbs, and then Debo, since Debo is trying to push to play and coming back from that calf injury. I think that's where I would kind of rank each of those guys. And while Gibbs has been playing well, to your point, John, still splitting with David Montgomery once they get into the red zone, inside the 10, inside the 5. So and this is more a tougher matchup for the Lions go up against the Seahawks defensive front. Mike McDonald, I think, has really whipped that defense like into shape like so far, like for the first like 3 weeks. So I'm really excited to see like what that chess matchup is going to be between Ben Johnson on one side, Mike McDonald like on the other side. So I think I would go Connor for the matchup and also the workload.
Yeah, I'm with you too. It stinks when you have a guy like Gibbs and you really need him, and he can get scripted out of a game. And I don't think there really isn't a game script that Connor is not a part of, unless of course it's like 38-0, in which case he might have scampered into the end zone twice, in which we don't care, right? That's kind of the back door that we don't care about. All right, one more quick tight end question. Let's not spend too much time on these. So with McBride down, which a lot of people are dealing with, it's Fant, Higgins, or Otten, or All. I think we're going to get a lot of that. I wouldn't bother with All. I don't want a second tight end. We did mention Otten in the workload. I would go Fant because I think the upside is there, and he started getting a little bit of attention. So that's probably where I'd go, is just try and get attached to the best offensive quarterback. What do you think, Chris?
I agree. And like so far we've seen like Noah Fant's like his like route participation and also like his usage has started to pick up like on a week-to-week basis. And I think that was the hope for him like coming into this year. Like the athletic ability we already knew was going to be there. But now like we're seeing like also like his like now last week I know was something of a fluke because they were going against the Dolphins. What if we are like seeing like 6 targets this past week, which was a season high for him? I think that's where it's just like I'll lean on that. Whereas I know that most folks will probably be looking at like DK Metcalf or even like Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I do want to talk about like JSN a bit more. We'll see if we get some questions about him. Like that's where like I'm just in on the entire Seattle Seahawks like offense like for this matchup that we were hoping is going to be more high scoring, more up pace versus trying to look at Elijah Higgins, Cade Otton, guys that are getting in their cardio, and really like for Higgins specifically, just a guy that we're propping up because Trey McBride is going to be there. I know he caught the touchdown last week and that's all well and good, but could this be a week that they get Greg Dortch like more involved? Because if you remember last week, Greg Dortch pulled up with a hamstring injury like prior to week 3's game. So that have been why he was hindered a bit from his usage. Michael Wilson could be involved. There are other avenues for Kyler Murray to go. So I'm not entirely convinced that just because McBride is gone and that just elevates Higgins into that particular role. So I'll go with Fant, just knowing the offensive environment. I love what Geno Smith is doing right now from a pass game perspective. He was one of the guys that I noted as a quarterback sleeper during the offense yet. But in the Fantasy Life like magazine, if you're able to check that out over the summer as a quarterback sleeper to target, like that's where I'm at. So I would take Noah Fant like out of that group.
Yeah, love that call out. I also love the Dortch call out. One quick stat, in case we have any prop bettors out there. I think this is a big Dortch reception game because of what you mentioned. One, without McBride. Also, Washington's really struggled to defend that center part of the field. They're allowing more than 9 receptions and more than 100 yards a game to the slot alone. Mm-hmm. Yeesh. So we've seen the Dortch kind of PPR scam happen. I think we're in line for another one of those. So there might be another Dortch reception ladder in play here. And one quick bow on Fant, something that I like to look for. You mentioned it you were dancing around it, was creative usage. And Fant is not only explosive, but he's running 15 slot routes a game and getting 3 targets every week. And I think we like that. I think for me that separates it. You mentioned it. Listen, the Higgins stuff, the Otten stuff, it's a snore, okay? You might fall in the end zone. You might. but it's a
Mhm.
snore. And I think if you have a pop and an explosive player like you mentioned, I think that's the sharp move. Next up,
Yeah.
it's a really tough QB question. This is like the Solomon paradox. You can't do this to me. Kyler Murray or Jaden Daniels. You need a two QB league, man. Force one of those guys in.
I
Heather,
don't
you
even
did a great job drafting. That's my answer.
exactly. Oh my gosh, like Kyler Murray or Jaden Daniels. All right, I'll say this. I'll go with Jaden Daniels. I'll just say it, and I'll say it's more vibes based. But I'll give one stat. I mean, like prior to the game, like Jaden Daniels, like his passing average depth of target had been like below average, like the bottom 12 in the entire league, and then we saw him start to uncork the deep ball just this past weekend against the Bengals. So now if he has like not just his like quote unquote like he has his putter, but he also has his driver that he can use like once he gets out there onto the field, then okay, fine. We know because the rushing equity between the two should be shared. Like, it should be equitable. Like Kyler, we know can rush. Like he's been over like around like what 40, 50 like rush yards per game.
Yep.
Jane Daniels has been able to scramble, has been at least be able to create on the ground as well, to create first downs and move the chains, like so on and so forth. So if that's going to be the same, we also know like the passing production overall, like I would say from an explosive standpoint, that should be there for Jane Daniels. And we're also going to get like at least something of I would say like because the Cardinals are walking in without they just lost like one of their like the linebackers or one of their defensive players like just to a torn triceps. I think that was announced on Tuesday, Wednesday of this past week. So more concern for the Cardinals defense. I'll go towards Jaden Daniels. But I can understand like why you would want to lean towards Kyler Murray because right now he's what the QB3 on the season. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think I'd go Daniels because there are just better other players on Arizona. Washington has not been great stopping the run, and in case it's a big James Conner day and Arizona kind of runs with it,
Yeah.
I think Murray could end up, again, not to say scripted out, but somewhat scripted out, where Daniels either gets there or gets pushed to get there. And man, if he starts looking at these like preventative shells, he could start taking off and he could get you 100 on the ground.
I mean, it's a great problem to have. And I'm sure
no
that
kidding.
like I think right now, like our rankers have like Kyler Murray as the number 1 quarterback on the week, and
Wow.
Jaden Daniels is the consensus number 4 quarterback on the week. So you can't go wrong like either way.
Okay, so here's a deep leaguer right here. We got a Braylon Allen snap share playing for upside versus it says Den or Dobbins. I'm not sure what Den would be. I think it's
versus Denver.
Oh, versus Denver or Dobbins. Oh, for me, Dobbins easy because of the, it's just the upside. Like we've seen it. We've seen that run game actually function.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about Herbert also. I know everyone else is. And the Chiefs have been kind of stout. But I think you have to go there anyway because there's a chance like Allen is not a fact. It's just his chance is not a factor,
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Like I understand like the snap share and the potential upside. Also used in the passing game. Like that's really interesting to me that a guy like of his size, they just immediately tossed him out there and he was running routes and like what had a receiving touchdown in week 1 or week 2 or something along those lines.
He scored twice.
So it's like, so I think that's definitely like it showcases his upside and awesome that you were able to draft him and now you have like one of those guys with contingent value. But I'll take the volume or the projected volume in this matchup, despite the fact that it's going to be probably like a slow paced game, like with his run heavy as the Chargers have been so far, and how like tough the Chiefs defense has been from that standpoint. Like I can see it like not being a high statistical outing for him, but without like I know that the vibes are bad, but I will take the potential volume for Dobbins like versus like whatever we think the upside might be for playing the Jets or playing any of the Jets pieces against Denver's defense.
Yeah, I mean he's averaging more than 16 carries each of the last 2 games, and they've shown the quality of rational coaching. I actually covered this in one of my newsletter intros, and it's like, at the very least, people, we should be settling our coin flips with rational coaching. Like,
yes,
the last name Harbaugh is a good place to settle on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again,
yeah.
Now it's unfortunate because I was on, oh my gosh, the name slipped me. The wide receiver on the Chargers, Josh Palmer, right?
Yeah.
And now injuries kind of wiped him out. We haven't really seen much there. And now with Herbert down, maybe the arrow is pointing down, which could hurt Dobbins. But again, you really mentioned the V word. For me, it's volume and touchdown equity, right? The ball's on the one. It's not going to Braylon Allen. It is going to Dobbins.
Well, no, it's good. Well, see, we say that, and it's going to go to like a slant route to Allen Lazard. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Absolutely.
I'm putting it out there in the universe. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry, but that's probably what's going to happen.
Oh man, get that clip ready for later on. Next up, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Ghost. If Mixon is ruled out, which I think we said he's going to play, so I think that knocks down Akers. If
Correct.
Mixon is in, but it's still Worthy, Leggett, or Michael Wilson, this is it's almost too bad. I'm not saying it's too bad Mixon's going to play, but this would have been a manifestation of that initial kind of like hypothesis that I had on earlier, right? Like if you find yourself with indescript wide receiver 4, let's call him Michael Wilson, right? Or that like kind of scrappy running back 2, let's call him Cam Akers. So I think the answer is wide receiver here. My Xavier Worthy best ball bags right now are just covered in tears right now. They're looking for a place to sleep under the overpass, to be honest. I don't know if you can go with Worthy. Do you have a stake here? It might be Leggett. Wilson's in the environment. It's tough.
That's where I would definitely I would say the easy no for me is Worthy. His route share was actually down this past week, and that was without seeing anything. Like we knew like Hollywood Brown was going to be out. We knew this should have been like more of an up tempo matchup. So and without seeing like any more production out of him or any like better usage out of him, I think he's the easy no until we start to see more schemed up targets for him, like from Andy Reid and company. Leggett does become interesting, like with Adam Thielen not being a part of the roster like anymore, him going on injured reserve. I would say that like between him or Wilson, I guess I lean a bit more Wilson just in this particular matchup, not because like the quadriceps injury that Marvin Harrison Jr. like had that made him limited in practice. He got into full practice on Friday. That's not as much of a concern. It's just more of the offensive environment in general. I did note as Wilson being a sneaky start for this week in my wide receiver cornerbacks matchup column. I mean, playing outside primarily, that has been like where like the Commanders have been roasted. I mean, like look at what Jamar Chase did when they put like single coverage on him. Now, I know that most of those targets are going to go to Marvin Harrison Jr. Like that's what likely is going to happen. But just given where Wilson's deployed, I lean towards him in that matchup. Whereas we don't know how Leggett and Jonathan Mingo are going to be deployed this week in that 3 wide receiver rotation. But we do know that assuming Deontay Johnson is healthy, over 25% of the targets going to go his way anyway. So I guess I lean more towards Michael Wilson in this match. I'd probably go Wilson, Leggett, and then Worthy, like out of that group.
You gave one of my favorite lawyer answers before. I actually wanted to ask you if you had any background or like even like ancillary experience in it, because a lawyer's favorite answer is always it depends, right?
Yeah.
Ask a lawyer anything. Ask him anything.
It depends.
Always it depends. But I think we agree. I want to put one little bow on it is today I think that's the answer. I think Michael Wilson is my answer today. You made all the pertinent points. Rest of season, I think my answer might be Leggett, though. Right?
Yes, I agree.
Right, return. Okay, so you are with that. So that's where I think I'd go. While you were making all those good points, I actually ran through the utilization database. I don't know how sticky predictive this would be, but it's all we had. Was the second half of last week after Thielen went down, Leggett was the number 2 behind Johnson. You know? He was out there pretty much every route. I think the route share was like 89%. Once you get to that 88 or 89, remember, sometimes there's like weird formations and stuff. I kind of consider that every role player. So to Chris's point, it doesn't necessarily have to be a shallow league. Leggett might be a good hold right now. Kind of if you have free agency and he's out there in like a more standard league, you might be able to get him and hold on to somebody that come bye weeks really might be useful. Really, really good stuff there. So let's see who's next. Okay, Jalen Waddle or Bucky Irvin. Oh my God, my Waddle bags are crying. I got a lot of tear soaked. Shares, Mr. Allen. Jeez Louise. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this right now. You gotta go well. You have to play with Waddle. You have to. You have to hope Snoop and Loop. Snoop, bring a green hat, man. You gotta hope that he does some stuff.
So 2 things like working against like Bucky Irvin, like one, the groin hamstring injury, or whichever of the 2 that he sustained like early in the week.
Well, he said he's fine, dude.
He's fine. Yeah, I'm sure he said he's fine. The fantasy community at large is probably saying he's fine because he was the guy that we were saying that we wanted him to take over that Buccaneers backfield. I mean, over Rashad White, who's been one of the least inefficient runners in the league. So that's one thing working against him. 2, if anybody follows me, like has seen any of my work, Chris Allen, FFWX on Twitter, the weather stuff. Tampa this morning, Hurricane Helene. That should be some rain in Tampa this morning. I'm showing like rainstorms throughout the earlier parts of the game, then also like throughout the game, like not enough to really impact the game at the start. It might look like something of a downpour, but it should taper off throughout the game. Slick surface. degraded field conditions. I mean, this is the same type of injury that Deontay Johnson decided to sit out of practice for like earlier in the week. So if I've got those two concerns, like already going like for Bucky Irving, I'll lean towards Jaden Waddle. At least it was good to see that he was able to split the target share with Tyreek Hill. I thought it was just going to be Tyreek Hill and nobody else. In their first week without Tua Tagovailoa starting under center for them. So if they are trying to at least find a way to get them involved, there is some, I guess, maybe some optimism about what Snoop can do as a quarterback, like for them. Like if he's going to start tomorrow, like that part of the Monday night doubleheader, if I remember right, against the Titans. So like I think it's more Jalen Waddle than Bucky Irving, but not just for the injury concerns, but then also for the potential weather concerns, like for that game.
Great job. For me to add anything would probably be a waste. I'm going to try and pick up my piece a little bit more. Okay, so it's kind of a buck shot coming at you right now. Pick
All
two.
Right, let's do it.
Jennings, Shakir. Again, guys, Trey Tucker, that's not the same, right? Those are not the same thing, right? We want to be smart. We don't want to be cute. Then it's Dortch, Michael Wilson, which I think are viable, and then like Cordell Patterson. I don't think you're going to go there. I think it's too soon for that stuff. I think you want to look. It says PPR. Let's focus on the full-time players. I think that's a good place to start. Juwan Jennings. So for me, I would slim it down to Jennings, Shakir, Dortch, Michael Wilson. Man, Jennings takes a little bit of a ding with Debo. I don't know if he's really that guy. We may get the Ayuk bounce back. I think I would go Shakir and Dortch and look to volume my way to the finish line today.
That's where I'm at because my assumption is that even with like Jaylen Warren out because of his knee injury, like this could be the week we see Justin Fields like get off a bit more as a runner. So I'm not like, well, CPAT like has been used like once they get into the red zone, like so on and so forth. I think Shakir for sure. Jennings takes a hit. I'm on Shakir and Dortch. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, this next one is all you. Alvin Kamara or Brian Robinson with Eckler is out with the concussion.
Give me Brian Robinson. Alvin Kamara, like if it's a PPR, okay, it isn't a PPR league. Alvin Kamara, I think, can get there like as a receiver, but they are down not just one, but two of their starting offensive linemen for this week. And with the Olave stuff, I know there's probably going to be some questions about Chris Olave. I do have some general concerns about what that entire offense is going to be as a whole. So give me the guy that probably has the higher touchdown equity in Brian Robinson.
And if you check on our screen, everybody, take an eye off mowing the lawn or babysitting the kids for 1 second. Check out the QR code. That's take you right to our start sit tool and help to objectify some of these decisions we're trying to make. I agree with you 100%. I would also like to just add Taysom Hill was practicing all week. And he drives projectors and modelers crazy because it's so fluid, but does take something. And he is also a threat at the goal line, which for me kind of hurts. I think the best of the Kamara season is behind us, although I do think he's very good. I think he nailed it with the Robinson. Kmet or Schultz? For me, it's Schultz with the Dell Ding plus. I have a thing for CJ Stroud. He's not only one of my favorite players, he's one of my favorite humans. And I love him at home. Yeah, he's the first one to thank JC. That's just my boy. He's my boy. CJ Stroud's my boy.
Ohio,
I'm riding
baby.
with him until the very end. If I have one jersey in my life that's not belong to a New York Jet, it'll be CJ Stroud. He's fantastic. He's fantastic at home. They're in a great environment. So I would go with Schultz. I think his volume is a little more secure.
I agree, 100%.
All right, cool. Need some help? Help! And good morning to everybody. Buen dias. Brandon Ayuk, Jameson Williams. Oh, now we're getting tough. Adunze or Shaheed.
10 man.
Man, that's tough. This is a really tough one. It doesn't say one or two, man. If it's one, I don't even know. If it's two, maybe it's the first two. Ayuk and Jameson. I like Adunze, but if Allen is playing, I think he would fall outside the bubble. Strong take, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Like the first two, I mean, those guys like Brandon Ayuk just this past, like last week, missed a couple of catches that probably would have saved his day from a fantasy production standpoint. The air yards were there. The target share was there also for Brandon Ayuk. He just happened to be playing against the second coming of Randy Moss. That was just his only thing. I mean, just poor Brandon Ayuk had to play next to Juwan Jennings, who apparently had a little bit of Randy Moss in him. I mean, poor dude. But Jameson Williams, like we already know, like where his target share is sitting at, like he's like essentially the team's wide receiver too. Sam Laporta, who should play, like is playing like kind of injured with the low ankle sprain. So in a matchup that we think is going to be somewhat tough for them to get over with this Mike McDonald defense, I think it's going to be JMO, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, those would be my two.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That was a really great job. Let's see. Look at the same name, Shaheed. I guess we're always some overlap. So people
Yeah.
that we've mentioned, don't forgive us if we brush through it, but
Yeah.
it's what it is. So Shaheed, Waddle, Brian Thomas, or Charbonnet. I think with Walker back, I think Charbonnet has to fall out. Right? See,
Yep.
it's almost like how Mom taught me to do my multiple choice exams. Right? You kind of try to eliminate the one that you're pretty sure it's like that you're
Not
pretty
going to
sure
be.
it's not, and
That's
you
how you
kind of
do it.
work your way from there. Right?
Yeah.
Hey man, she did something, right? Well, maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. It's arguable anyway. My guy, believe it or not, with the the quarterback situation in Miami is probably Brian Thomas. I think he's the best receiver on that team.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I mean, because with as many problems, because the Jags passing game, it just makes me so frustrated. Like watching that team, it's just like, oh man, they're just, and it feels like Doug Peterson doesn't even want to be there. But that's a whole other thing.
Is Trevor Lawrence bad?
I don't think he's bad. I just think
Okay.
it's a mix between like the offensive situation, like there's some schematic issues, then also like the just the personnel, but it's just like bad vibes like all around.
Is he inaccurate though?
No, I don't think he's inaccurate.
You
No,
don't
I
think
don't.
he's inaccurate?
No, I don't think he's inaccurate. He does make He does make bad decisions. I don't think he's generally inaccurate. Like I don't think that. But out of that group, yeah, I think like the way that you laid it out is right. Like take the guys out that you don't think are going to be worthwhile playing. In that case, definitely Sharps. So I think Brian Thomas, just for the fact that we've seen him start to ascend like from an air yard standpoint in the target share, and we know what Gabe Davis is. We know what Britton Strange is. We know what like most of the rest of those pass catching options for Trevor Lawrence are going to be. So if I had to pick anybody out of that group, it'd be Brian Thomas.
Speaking of, so this is our elimination question. You also mentioned JSN, so I want you to take the floor here, and we're going to eliminate two. So I actually like these better than picking one. It's like let's try and work these backwards. So JSN, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, and Juwan Jennings. Man, that's tough. So one more time: JSN, T, Deontay, Amari. I actually tend to think Juwan Jennings might have fallen on the outside, but I want you to take this one.
Yeah, because like for T, I mean, it was great to see him get out of that game healthy. Also had like a couple of catches. Like he's more like the boundary type of receiver. That's where like Joe Burrow like places a number of his balls in order to help them move the chains. But since he was still like second on the team in air yards, like second in targets, he just didn't fall into the end zone. Like I think that's where like the general concern like for T is, but in this matchup, I can see him having like one of those T winds up having like one of those like big blow up games where he had like that 2 touchdown game I think it was like last year, and then just like fairly little like just like ebbs and flows like thereafter. I think this could be that game, especially with Jamar Chase like nursing what is a shoulder injury, full practice like throughout the week, like after he popped up limited on Wednesday. Not as concerned like for T. So I think it's T. I like JSN. For like his matchup in the slot, like against, I believe it's going to be Amik Robinson, like who's probably one of their weaker corners, for the Lions. I think teams have been averaging like over 100 yards per game, like just from the interior. So if there's going to be a way that Seahawks like try and attack like the Detroit's defense, it might be on the interior. So that also leads to the part like you brought up a really good point about Noah Fant like running routes from the slot. So now I really like Fant even more. But since JSN has like primarily been like their slot guy, over 70% of his snaps like playing on the inside, I think it's those two that stuck out. But of course, like Deontay Johnson's target share, I think it probably would go Deontay and then T, and then like kind of the rest of those guys are like the really good, but like
so
really
you're toss
solid.
up Deontay v. Amari.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Deontay, me too. Oh, man, if I'm not even going to ask you if Deshaun Watson is bad. I know he's bad. I used to really like Deshaun Watson. Again, I try not to hold the off-field stuff. It is what it is. I don't judge men. It's not my job. But like, you hurt my feelings, dude. And the least you could do is at least show us that you're really working at this stuff, and not talk about you not scrambling and like reading defenses is your job. I'm starting to get the feeling.
Get him out of here.
I'm starting to get the feeling that like we need to. Again, Carolina, for as bad as they were and took all the narrative destruction, you have to respect the fortitude, the courage to say, yo, we effed up, and we're not going to buy into the sunken cost fallacy and run this organization to the ground. Cleveland, I think we're at the point we need to do the same thing. So,
yeah, give me Jameis Winston, please.
Yeah, oh my God. All of a sudden, Cooper, like 122 touchdown games, we're back on the menu, boys. You know what I'm saying? Until then, he's so bad because the sack stuff is so bad. The decision making is so poor. Not only you can see him in real life, think about it, choke, tuck it, think about running, then scratch that idea and then eat the sack, or it's really ugly. It's not just like bad statistics. I'm watching this stuff, people. The ball lowers.
Man, you've had a Jurassic Park reference and now a Lord of the Rings reference all in the same pod. You're cooking with gas.
You know what?
You're throwing gas today, John.
Without that specific. Oh man, if you know, you know.
Gas.
I'm all about that. Listen, and don't forget the dodgeball. Up for love. Up for love. All right, next up. Michael Pittman, that's been brutal, the entire Colts thing. I would actually, as you answer this, I would like for you to put your bow if you think Steichen kind of rights the ship again. But it's Pittman, Jacoby Myers, or Joe Mixon. Man, could you believe someone be asking you Pittman versus Jacoby Myers?
No, I guess given the context, but at the start of the season, no. Start of the season, absolutely not, because we were thinking it's going to be the Devontae Adams show, or the Devontae Adams Brock Bowers show, which, like, for Brock Bowers, it's turning out to be. No, I think I'll take Jacoby Myers, like, for the projected volume, like in this matchup. Michael Pittman Jr. I was talking to Dwayne and Ian on the show, if not last week, the week beforehand. It's just like where Pittman runs his routes is just incongruent to how, like, Anthony Richardson plays, like, right now. And, like, while, like, he is, like, the most, like, he is bottom 12 in EPA per play on passes, like, one across the middle, like, in the intermediate parts of the field. So it's just like, he and all of his receivers, like, similarly, like, their yards after catch per reception, one of the lowest in the league when targeted on those types of passes. So it's like, if we're not going to get, like, while Pittman has, like, most of the, like, the metrics in order to say, like, he's the wide receiver one for the team. I mean, around 20%, like, targets per route run, over 20% of the team's targets, like, area. I mean, all that stuff is there for him. But if Richardson, like, can't put the ball in the place for Pittman to really create, like, after the catch and do the Pittman thing where it's like, it's volume plus efficiency. We're getting the volume. We're not getting the efficiency because of Richardson's ball placement. But I think overall throughout the rest of the season, like, Shane Steichen should be able to put him in situations for him to really excel. Because, like, at the start of the season, it was like weeks 1 and 2, the Colts were like, top of the league in terms of RPO rate, pre-snap motion, using play action. I mean, all of the efficiency levers that, like, an offensive line can use in order to, like, allow for his team to create and move the ball down the field. I think they'll get back to that. It's just the growing pains with Richardson that we just need to adjust for. How many, like, Richardson only had, like, he had limited starts in college, only had 2 starts, like 2 full starts last year.
I think we're at 20 total.
Yeah. So it's like he's at 20 total starts, like, for his, like, entire career. So it's like we have to give him some time in order to get there. I know the guy looks like he comes from Wakanda and all that. Like, he can just, like, run over everybody on the field. But it's like, give him some time in order to get to that point. He can use all of his powers to completely just destroy, like, defenses left, right, and center.
I'm so easy to bait into an Anthony Richardson conversation because I'm such a big fan. But it's funny. It's not even that. You made a really great point, which has been maybe the most frustrating thing for me, 1, in terms of the Colts, and 2, so the Michael Pittman question is, Pittman was the designed first read. Now, I hate the safety blanket. I can't believe I'm saying it twice. But that's what it became, where we had this, quick set. Pittman's going to be in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. Richardson could hit the spot. He's got the laser, and then let Pittman try and run over a secondary player or two. Yeah. And that just kind of disappeared. They're not doing that. And that was a true source of success for them. Yeah. And I thought when they reintroduced downs, maybe that would take some of the close attention away and open that window, and it hasn't. And I don't know what's going on. We mentioned rational coaching. I tend to have a lot of faith in Steichen. I think he's very good.
He's very good. Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for this to click. So I want to stay confident, but right now I would probably go away from the Colts, which kills me because, again, these are guys that I really like.
And also a tough matchup for them against the Steelers this week too. Although Pittman won't see a ton of, like, Joey Porter Jr. and, like, and all of that, but still it might be a tough matchup for him overall.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's very good.
He is awesome, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting to that point, like the Revis Island guys, where there are a couple guys, where if you get Surtain, and if you get even Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots a little bit, and Porter for the Steelers, you have to start thinking about sitting those wide receiver ones. I'm going to take everyone back a decade and date myself. One of my greatest fantasy W's of all time. I sat Calvin Johnson against the Jets in just a regular matchup, and it got me the W.
Because of Revis?
Scrub instead, because Revis would smush this guy.
Island back then.
And again, man, you're just a good point. You're a habitual point stepper,
Charlie Murphy.
You nailed it, though. It limits the opportunities because the quarterback one is thinking the danger is there, but the coordinator is also thinking we're going to let them put attention there and we're going to counterpunch. So a lot of great stuff from you today. All right, next up, can we trust Olave today? I mean, I trust Olave in general, or go with George Pickens. Ooh, this is a tough one because it is alpha. Man, that Pittsburgh environment is really tough, but Pickens is the guy. And if you're watching those games, a lot of missed opportunities, right? Like penalties and stepped out of bounds on one.
Yeah.
His season it hasn't been bad, but it could be a lot better. What do you think, Olave and Pickens? This is a tough one.
I would go Pickens in this match just so I can get rid of the injury concerns like for Chris Olave. Now I know that the air yard share, it was there in week 2. He converted the prayer yards into actual receiving yards in week 3. Right. And let's assume that even if he's out there, that continues to be the case here in week 4. But I just don't want to have, even if he does play, the risk of re-aggravation like during the game is always going to be a potential, like that's going to be the thing that's in the back of our minds. Yeah. Like if you start him and he's out there, it's like, at what point do we see him? Like the moment everybody sees like Chris Olave to the blue medical tent, everyone's be like, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. Like everybody's going to be thinking about it. So it's like with Pickens, if we already do know that we have at least something of a weaker matchup against the Colts secondary, we know the target share is going to be there. One less target earner in Jaylen Warren not being there for the Steelers. I just think it's an easier route to go Pickens in this particular case, like for week 4.
The Pickens stuff is incredible, by the way, too. I mean, 24% target per route run, 2.3 yards per route. It's incredible. Yeah. 12 air yards per target, which is that. I actually like that, right? 14 and 15 is a little too deep, and like the single digits are a little bit too low. So that porridge is just right, man. If they figure it out, that could be awesome. We saw the Fields Moore connection look like an alpha battery at points. So I think I'm with you on this one because of the matchup. 100% Olave like in the dome is generally where I'm going, but I'm with you. I want to see it first. Health is such a big thing. Yeah. Let's see. All right, somebody's trashing A-Rich. I'm not going to have any of that. We're not allowing that today.
No, none of that. None of that.
I know, but they can't fathom Darnold over Anthony Richardson, and I'm sorry, that's my recommendation for a matchup. And
he might not be good just right now. Correct, just give it time. Yeah. Give it time.
Okay, now but put your rubber gloves on. We're going dumpster diving, Mr. Allen.
Oh boy.
Pick two. My God, you need a more shallow. You need less friends, George. So it's pick 2 between Akers, Carson Steele, and if Walker's Ken Walker, I think that's a smash. That's even easy. With reduced workload, I think he's the touchdown equity no matter what. I'd probably go Akers because I think Akers' positive game script is the RB1. They should be ahead, but if they fall behind, he might lose the pass game work. And Steele, I don't know. I don't know. What do you got, man? What do you got? Can you eliminate one, please? You know?
Yeah, I would say like Walker is the one that's like automatically in.
Yeah,
like, right. It's just between like Akers and Steele. The only thing I would say that like I would give towards Steele is that like he was the one that was being used like in like short yardage like type situations. Like in the early down grinder like for Kansas City. And if we're thinking that this is going to be a game that the Chiefs like more or less control, like from opening kickoff to the last whistle gets blown, I would say that it would lend itself more towards Carson Steele. Yeah. That'd be the only thing that I would kind of lean on. Now, of course, once they get into like the red zone, of course, Andy Reid is going to do his typical BS and like try and find like some sort of like crazy way in order to get somebody else other than Carson Steele involved, right? It's going to be like a shovel pass to like Travis Kelce or one of the linemen will get involved or something wild. I think that's there's only knock, but if we are thinking about just projectable volume for this game, I think Walker has it for sure. Like since we're assuming he's going to be playing this week, everything sounds like he's going to be good to go for Monday night. And then Steele is like probably the one that I'm thinking, unless we get word that Mixon's going to be out. But for right now, I will take Steele because he's in the better offensive environment, and then Walker. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, but it's the toughie. Steele unfortunately comes across as one of those. Again, listen, touchdown equity for the Chiefs is something worth looking at, right? It's worth our attention. Yeah. But it's unfortunate when you have guys that I call them decimal backs. Like he could go 12 for 52 and you get 5.2 and you're like, oh, that sucks. The decimal. It's just like, oh no,
I'm going to take that. I like that one.
Not the 52 for 5.2.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
I like that.
You know what that reminds me of? Our guy Hornets with the just a couple of dudes out there earning 1.5 PPR points. Right? He'll show you a running back breaking tackles and spinning and getting 15 yards, and then some back catching a swing pass and falling forward a few yards.
And that's it. It's worth the same.
Our guy and Hall of Famer Nando on the 1s and 2s says Jordan Love has arrived in jeans and a Favre jersey. I'm not sure what that means. Are they Wrangler jeans? Is he going to be barbecuing and throwing the foosball around? I don't know if that's what that means. And Ian Rappaport says McCaffrey is back from Germany and should be back at least by early November. Again, I'm not a doctor. I try not to even pretend to be one on social media.
All right.
I was speaking to a couple people that are not optimistic for McCaffrey before Thanksgiving.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, again, we don't have a lot of information. These are people that I know that are in the business of sports medicine and DPTs and stuff like that. So they're not like out of the loop, but also we don't know exactly what's going on, the degrees, the severity. Let's just put it this way. I'm not buying any green bananas for Christian McCaffrey's return. No. I think you're still stashing Garendo. You're still rolling out Mason.
Yes.
I think what this question is almost like, would you be looking to sell high on Jordan Mason yet? I'm not. It's too soon for that.
No, too soon for that.
Okay, let's see. Next up, who wants what? Wait, this can't be. Is it Drake London or Jacoby Myers? Again, Jacoby Myers kind of vaulting himself into it. You know what? Maybe more than just a player, Chris, because I love the macro takes. Where do we draw the line between situational upgrade, right? Myers situational upgrade, and like really good player. Like Lund's a really good player.
Yeah, because like I think the pros for Drake London is the fact that he was able to like get over a 30% target share just this past week. I mean, still used on play action, so he got to that wide receiver one role that we wanted him to have like at the start of the season. Atlanta, I mean, going up against New Orleans, while the defensive matchup isn't really one that scares me, I do think that against for Jacoby Myers with most of the target share condensing around him, that's why I would assume that the start sits tool has Myers graded out as the better option just for this week, right? Because the Raiders right now, I mean, they are like top 5-ish or top 5, top 6 in pass rate over expectation. The volume has actually been there. Now, are those targets valuable? Like, is a target from either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew worth more than Kirk Cousins? I would wholeheartedly say no. It's just that, like, given the fact that they have fewer pass catchers to deploy this week, I can see why folks would lean towards like Jacoby Myers in this particular, or like for just week 4. But overall, the rest of the season, as we were having that conversation earlier, like a similar conversation earlier, Drake London for the rest of the season, Jacoby Myers in week 4.
Yeah, Saints defense is a little bit up and down if we're just looking at the spreadsheet, right? They've done pretty well. Opposer passer rating is at 68 for the year, which is incredible. But again, because they've been ahead, that's where we get these volume stats of like they've given up a lot of passing yards. But again, it's because of the game scripts, and that might even answer a lot of I might answer all the hurries because they're pinned back and all that stuff. What I'm getting at is London has 6 catches in each of the last 2 games. We had the real stinker week 1 that I'm ready to kind of throw away with the Cousins immobility.
Oh,
now,
I
can't go too long without mentioning some gambling stuff. So hold on, we're at 2 games in a row of 6 catches for London. His alt prop today, 6 catches, Mr. Allen, is plus 135. Is London back in the napkin math? I mean, it's less than 50%, but that would make him a 47% chance to get 6 grabs. I think I like him for 6 grabs.
I think I would like him for 6 grabs in this game. Yeah, for sure. I mean, since for all the reasons that we just laid out. Yeah, and let's assume that let's assume like Chris Olave plays, and this is at least something of a competitive matchup. I mean, let's assume that Rashid Shaheed goes back and actually converts his prayer yards into actual receiving yards, considering he did none of that last week. And they're the Falcons do have some reason to throw. And then 6 grabs, I think, for Drake London. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, I don't know if you saw it. Shaheed had one on the fingers at the goal line. So he's
I saw
high value targets. Yeah,
I saw.
Dude,
yeah. Oh, I saw.
Face said it all. Oh my God, I wish I had a still image of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pain, right? There was hurt, right? That was hurt that hit heel. That I feel like I picked that. I feel like I just picked the scam. But to a real point though on Shaheed, because I've gotten asked that question, should we be looking to get away from Shaheed? I guess if you're going by box score, well, I think this is a great frame. If you're looking at the box score, he seems like he might be a good sell high, right? You had monster game, he kind of flopped.
Yeah.
Should I get out of it? I would say no. He's out there all the time. The route tree is actually diverse and is getting high value targets. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate if he doesn't have the sheesh moment. It ends up being a nice game, but such is life. All right, next up, a couple of names we haven't seen yet. Interesting. Okay, so Ramondre Stevenson, who I tend to really like. We have to get there. Javonte Williams, who I think the arrow is pointing down, or Sutton, Cortland Sutton.
I'm assuming
it's half PPR though, so where if Sutton gets a bump for volume, we have to take that into account.
Oh, okay. I would like we were talking earlier, process of elimination. Let's take Javonte Williams out of that.
He's out. He is.
Because it's either Jaleel McLaughlin or Tyler Bidet now has become like the hottest thing like over in Denver now. So we can go ahead, like we'll take him out. If like half point PPR, I would lean towards Ramondre Stevenson because it's not like we're seeing any other production from any other running backs like out of the Patriots. The 49ers, San Francisco. That's what I was trying to say. The 49ers as a rushing defense. I mean, not the toughest of outs like from an EPA per play standpoint. So it's like if I'm getting like a fairly decent matchup. I mean. And also having the workload, 49ers right now, like bottom 10 in EPA or rushing success rate allowed. So it's like if I'm getting both the volume and also the good matchup, I would take like Ramondre out of that group.
Yeah, I think that's how you get the 49ers. I don't know if they're going to get the 49ers today that way, but that would be how to do it. Again, I would go Ramondre. I think you get the dual threat and the touchdown equity, which is really kind of everything. That's what moves the needle for me. Michael Wilson, Trey Tucker getting a lot of love today. Tutu, Atwell, Jahan Dotson, or Xavier Leggett. Oh, this one also has Tyler Lockett tucked in the front. I would go Leggett in this one. This is the one where I would finally go Leggett. I think Lockett, who's a nice player, I think we're seeing him fall behind JSN. I think that separation pattern has just begun. Mm-hmm. And I think by the time we finish, Lockett is going to be a fine role kind of slot wide receiver 3.
Yep.
I think Leggett has a chance. We mentioned it before, him taking over that snap load without Thielen, and we have some prospect pedigree and the second half rookie stuff. That's probably where I'd go.
Yeah, unless again, caveat this with if you face like Malik Neighbors or CeeDee Lamb on Thursday, and you need if you needed the punch, like if you needed like that explosive, like
who do you like to pop?
Out of that group, I would say Tutu could pop.
Right. Yeah,
because the Chicago's perimeter corners have been like more of the issue, and if Tutu can do like one of those, like he lines up in the slot and just gets does like a slot fade or something like that, and just like streaks down the field and like Stafford hits him for a long play, you can make your bones on like Tutu Atwell play on he could have 3 for 70 and a touchdown. And it's like, boom, all right, I made the shade at that point. So it's like, if you wanted to throw the Hail Mary, I think Tutu probably sticks out the most from that. Or like we were talking about with Jahan Dotson, although I believe it was Ian Rappaport that put it earlier, Lane Johnson for the Eagles is not going to be playing today, after he tried to get through concussion protocol. So that is a slight thing to Jahan Dotson's fantasy prospects. But either way, if it's everything 0-0, all things being equal, Leggett, in this matchup against the Bengals, I think it would be him or Wilson, I think, are probably the two that stick out. But I'm with you for Leggett.
Man, I gotta admit, I'm a little surprised. I was able to go check out the utilization last week only for the Rams in the wide receiver room, and Atwell actually was full time.
Yeah.
So I do this. It happens. I was kind of thinking slot only, kind of gadgety stuff.
Nope, inside out. I mean, he was doing it all.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It was there was deep shots and stuff. So
yeah.
Again, man, Hardis is just his ears must be ringing out of control. But listen, Stafford's the kingmaker, right? He's a wide receiver kingmaker. This guy elevates people, and McVay, the brain trust going on. Where I actually think you made a really good point, and I think there's even a back end to it, expansion, where Atwell could get you there with the yak, like you mentioned, 1,000%. We just saw it. But he could also scam you to glory, right? He could absolutely scam your way to glory. Like if I would have said, I love that you put Atwell 371, and you go, yeah, What if I said Atwell like 7-23-0? You go, yeah, all right.
Also, yeah, not the completely. I mean, both of those things are
Just a
completely
couple
within the
of
range of
dudes
outcomes.
scored 10 PPR points, Chris. Just a
Right.
couple of dudes out there scoring PPR stuff.
But people look at Atwell as the guy that's just like he can be knocked over by a stiff wind, where I was thinking, like, from what I had seen, like there were 15, 16 mile per hour winds like in the direction of Soldier Field today. So not a concern from a weather standpoint. But it's like he always has been that smaller guy that we just didn't think like he would have to be that gadget type of dude. But like Sean McVay's throwing him out there and getting him reps like down in and down out. So like I wouldn't just like completely toss him aside, especially without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua on the field.
All right, here's another close one. I'm going to do the easy work, and I'll make it hard for you. It's Drake London, Terry McLaurin, and Jerome Ford. I think Ford is the one that falls out because Foreman has looked really strong with the ball. And again, the Cleveland, that whole ecosystem environment is not really strong. London and McLaurin is a good one. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say Jerome Ford, like just for the matchup.
Oh, really? Shame on me.
I would say him, but like out of that group, I mean, Terry McLaurin. I mean, how can you completely discount like what he just did like this past Monday night? I mean, from an air yards and target share perspective, I mean, that was exactly what we wanted to see, like out of the Commanders' offense as a whole. So, like we were talking earlier, like what was it, the Jaden Daniels versus like Kyler Murray discussion? I mean, if we're advocating for Jaden Daniels, I mean, he can get there somewhat on the rushing, but like he has to also like show some of that passing acumen that he just showed this past week, and that has to go through Terry McLaurin in some way, shape, or form. So, like I think it's Terry McLaurin, and just like Terry McLaurin, Jerome Ford would be like the 1A, 1B. And then it'd be like probably Drake London as the two, like after that. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, great job. One of my favorite words for this stuff is trajectory. And in particular, when we're talking about rookie QBs, continuity and repetition is the most important for them. And then when you get that battery growth and the skill of McLaurin, like there's a possibility this is an alpha battery, right? This is a legit QB1, WR1 path the rest of the way. So I'm with you. One note I had on Washington, I tweeted about it, but I'm not that popular, so nobody cared. Noah Brown looks to have taken over the wide receiver 2 job there. He's running the most routes, and he's starting to secure targets. His season stats are starting to click up, and he missed the first game.
Right.
We saw him with some really explosive games with Houston. To be honest, I wasn't sure what to make of those. He tore it up for a couple weeks. So
yeah, he
just
torched
as
the
a
Bengals.
Yeah, right.
I still remember that. Week 7, I think that was when the Texans beat the Bengals. Yeah, I remember that.
That was a brutal one. But Brown absolutely went off. So if that's in his bag. And another thing with rookie QBs is when they kind of shake up the snow globe, we don't know where the targets are going to fall because we're not in the back room. Again, this is frog DNA stuff. Who is going to build the rapport? Who is going to accomplish the correct timing and that relationship that, again, it just doesn't get addressed often enough. We think, like, this guy's the wide receiver 1. It doesn't work that way. If he doesn't meld, it's going to go somewhere else. And I think Brown, just for deep leaguers, is a possibility. He's available like absolutely everywhere. This guy is just not being rostered, and he's interesting. All right, you got to try and go easier on the counts here. 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. We need 5. All right, how about this? Just pick out like your top and your bottom, like who you think needs to stay, who you think needs to go.
Okay.
Don't ask me about Justin Jefferson, people. I will refuse to recognize questions about Justin Jefferson. James Cook, Kyron Williams, even Kyron Williams should play. He's an every must. He's a must. Chuba Hubbard, Juwan, Zay Flowers, JSN, Christian Kirk, Pittman, and Tucker. Let me see if we can do some on the fly. So James Cook, Kyron Williams, Zay Flowers, JSN, I think.
Yeah. I mean.
Oh, I was kind of asking you, but if you're in agreement, that works also.
Right. Because because you're already playing Justin Jefferson. You're already playing James Cook. You're already playing Kyron Williams. I mean, like all those guys, like you're already playing like those first 3, like you're playing all these guys.
All right. This is the lightning round. Sorry to cut you off. Lightning round. We're gonna blow through it. We have a 7-minute warning.
Let's go.
I'm being completely quiet right now.
All right.
This is called putting our best foot forward.
Try.
Who's a better hold, Isaac Garendo or Trey Benson?
Benson.
Would you drop Juwan Jennings to pick up Jahan Dotson?
No.
Michael Pittman, Bucky Irvin, Christian Watson, or Greg Dortch? Half PPR, so ding for the Dortchman.
Still Dortch.
Really, really. I know we're not trying to talk bad at anybody, but that's a condemnation of the Michael Pittman stuff.
Yeah. I think that it's tough, but just with the matchup,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
go
this is a good one. This one I found interesting. Darnell Mooney or Juwan Jennings?
Mooney, wide
You
receiver
know what?
2,
Great.
play
Chris,
action,
I love your
target
stuff.
rate.
I actually think that's the sharp. I think that's the sharp and bold call.
Oh,
I think
this is gonna be wrong. I like I already know
aren't
like
they
how this is
always,
gonna.
dude?
Yeah,
That was the classic when a tout got CLV. Yo, we're 3 points ahead,
yeah,
guaranteed to lose,
yeah. I
guaranteed.
already know this was gonna be wrong, but I will say
Guaranteed
Mooney.
to,
Yeah,
great dude. I love working
yeah.
with you. All right, next up, Dobbins is another good running back question. It's not Steele. It's J.K. Dobbins or Jerome Ford. This is a good one.
Dobbins.
Really, even though they might fall behind. See, Jerome Ford has been calling me with the catches, but I'm worried about.
Oh,
Ford.
I didn't hear
Okay.
Ford. Ford. That's my fault. Ford.
Yeah, you liked
Yeah.
Ford before. That's kind of why I
Oh
mentioned.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
I thought it was between Dobbins and Steele. Ford.
Now, Steele, people, he's got to show it to you first. He's got to show it to you first, Steele, because again, you don't want to run a decimal out there with J.K. Dobbins, who's like out there
really like that.
breaking 100-yard games, and Ford, who might get 15 or more touches, right? We don't want to ignore that.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen, would you trade George Pickens and Juwan Jennings for Brian Robinson and Jaden Reed?
For Brian Robinson and Jaden Reed? Yeah. I think I could see myself doing that.
Yeah, me too. I generally want to get the best player in a deal. We could probably argue Jaden Reed and George Pickens, but for me, Brian Robinson's is the guy that we want, because I just think Jennings was a conditional play. It was a situational play, and we salute him for his service. We salute you for your service, sir. Thank you. I wish I drafted more of you in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore, wow, Zay Flowers, Tariq Hill. Give me 2 of those guys. Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore, Zay Flowers, and Tariq. That's a toughie, man, sitting those guys.
Tyreek, DJM, Stevenson.
Yeah, man, this is tough. Oh, Tariq Hill. Now, I like everybody else, I think we're just hoping for competent quarterback play, just to give everyone to have some fun this weekend. But
yeah, I think that's
we know what the bottom can look like of these teams.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can I trust Chris Olave today? Go with Pickens, Olave versus Pickens. I think someone asked that. I think you said Pickens, right?
Pickens.
Yeah. Someone says, when Flacco? The answer is maybe soon.
Maybe soon. I hope not, because I don't think he's performed. Has not performed at the Bryce Young level of bad that they really need to sit him. Like, he's not trying to jump and pass over his lineman like Bryce Young does. Like, we're not seeing a full-fledged breakdown of his mechanics. I think these are things that he can learn. He needs to learn through reps. And also, let's contextualize. Bryce Young got most of the last season in order to start. Anthony Richardson did not get that opportunity.
Wow,
so
amen.
Let's think about that before we say that we need to toss Flacco in.
Yeah, when he does, though, projections are going to spike, right?
Oh yeah, that's Michael Pittman all day long.
That's what it is. This is a really good one. Yeah. Garrett Wilson, which I can't believe we're even asking, or Rashid Shaheed, because at this point they're not too dissimilar.
If you need the punch, Rashid Shaheed. But otherwise, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. I think Wilson is the floor guy.
Yeah.
Shaheed is the ceiling guy. I forget who was talking about it. I consume way too much content. But even just yes or no, Chris, is Garrett Wilson even a ceiling play anymore? Like, can you see him breaking a slate? Oh, ouch.
No,
I agree.
No. I mean, because like Alan Lazard is mixing in. We were talking about Cardio Conklin earlier. We were talking about Breece Hall, Braylon Allen even getting like receiving work. I mean, all those guys are now taking like that one or two targets away, like per game, that could be going to Garrett Wilson. And like, we haven't even talked about what Mike Williams could look like if he gets back to full strength after the ACL tear. So it's just a lot of options in this slow-paced offense, and it's not as condensing as much around Garrett Wilson as we had hoped. So I don't know if he has a ceiling game.
Sorry, one of the very last ones. So it's specified for Guillotine League, so meaning we want to avoid floor. Right? By the way, I never played this until just now.
It's so much fun.
A lot of fun. And the
definitely
waiver,
what? Check it out if you haven't.
It's an inherent solution for the depletion of talent, right? In regular leagues, talent depletes because of injuries, where Guillotine Leagues kind of fills it back up. So what we want to do, people, is not have the lowest score. That team gets chopped. So we're looking to avoid the zeros, Mr. Allen. Jameson Williams, Deebo Samuel, Jacoby Myers.
Well, then Jacoby Myers. Score? Yeah, I mean, it has to be Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, even with the part-time Samuel stuff, Deebo has shown with like 8 touches, he could be the guy. Okay, very last one, and then we're going to get out of here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thanks for tuning into MB Fantasy Life Show with Mr. Chris Allen and me. It's Juwan Jennings. And look, nice calls at JSN. I think we know your answer, but go ahead.
JSN.
It's got to be JSN.
Yeah,
it's got
better matchup, better environment. Yeah, I'll take.
Better projectable floor as well. So that will do it. From, again, the GOAT, Chris Allen. Thank you for dealing with me, Chris. I appreciate you. It's really cool. Man, you're a really cool dude. And myself, I hope people say that about me one day. And Mr. Nando DeFito, the Hall of Famer on the 1s and 2s, spinning it hard to get a ticket when Funkmaster DeFito is in the building. 2 Suburbans in the herd. All right, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you, enjoy the games, enjoy your day. And when we're done with the book, we'll, enjoy the pay, hopefully.